All right. Welcome to this edition of Office Hours from Static Analysis. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us. As always, we'll follow the agenda with leading off with demos. And Lucas, I think this is yours if you want to introduce it and talk about what all's in there.
Sure. So I just recorded this like an hour ago, which is a custom rule set demo. So it's 13 minutes of setting up and using custom rule sets to disable rules for the ESLint scanner on a JavaScript project. This just uses the default Express project template. And it also includes a demo of ESLint's vulnerabilities that now report severity, which is all of them. So feel free to check that out. Happy to answer any questions or anything after a watch. There isn't really too much in the agenda, so I can do it live if we wanted, but we can save that for the end if so. Cool.
The only thing I would add to this is that we do have documentation in our SAST and secret detection pages about custom rule sets. I actually just gave a demo of this to a customer earlier this week, and I think we probably do need to put a few more examples and maybe a little bit more context about what scanners support what custom rule sets. So I'll look at getting an issue open for that.
I think that's actually a good segue to what I added here, which is the technical support first point. In doing the demo, one of the things that became more apparent to me is that with the current syntax, you need to identify a specific rule using the identifier name and value. So the identifier would name, or the identifier type would be like ESLint security rule, and then the value would be potential timing attack. And we don't really have a good way of surfacing those characteristics of the raw finding within our UI. It is kind of shown, but in a human readable way within the pipeline view. But you basically have to dig into the JSON report to figure out what the identifier is to use. So something we should look into improving. And yeah.
Okay. I guess we need an issue for that. So issue to follow.
I'll have a link shortly.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments on those things that have been hinted at or mentioned earlier? All righty. Caleb, I see you're here. Do you want to go ahead and get into the Slack thread?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been working with a customer who's using the spot bugs analyzer, and interestingly, so it's detecting 4 potential projects, and after it successfully scans the first one, it's actually failing with the message signal killed. I initially thought this was maybe like killer, it's running out of memory and the process is getting killed. It is running on the Kubernetes executor, by the way. So I had the customer up the amount of available memory to the build container to about 7 gigs. And they added a command to just show the available memory, and we can see that 7 gigs is available, but unfortunately it didn't really alleviate anything. So I'm a bit lost on where to go. I've considered having them append an after script and maybe running dmessage to see if we can see killer in there killing the process, but yeah, I'm just a little bit lost on what I could be looking for here.
So
what? Yeah. Go ahead, Lucas. Yeah.
There's a lot of typing, so yeah. I think other people definitely can chime in here. But one of the common, it's probably out of memory. We actually have Java ops set to default to 1900 megabytes within the analyzer, so that can be upped, and I'll link to that here. But
yeah, so they've upped that to There's a lot of details. I kind of just glossed over it, but there's a lot of details in the Slack thread, but they've upped that to a little over 6 gigabytes and it didn't seem to help at all. They tried using so right now they're using the flag, the XMX flag, and then they also tried using one that set the max memory to a percentage value of 90%, and that didn't help either.
Is it possible it's still running out of memory? How big is this app?
Well, the repository itself is only a handful of megabytes, but I don't know how big the build objects are specifically. So I mean, it is possible. It's still running out of memory. We could definitely try upping that more if they have more available. Yeah.
Okay. Just to back up a little bit, I know you're focusing in on memory, but just to, I want to make sure that I've got my assumption questions answered first. Since this is a multi-project repository and CI and CI pipelines that they're trying to configure, so can they build it? Do all 4 of these projects build?
Yes, I believe they are building it in a previous step and then passing them back as an artifact.
Okay, so there's a pre-compilation strategy available for spot bugs. Has that been tried?
Correct. Yeah, they're currently setting compile to false, and then they have a Maven repository path set as well.
Okay, so even with pre-compile strategy is turned on and we're not trying to build it, spot bugs is failing to scan it.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Sorry. I'm just recording it, just trying to make sure I've got it all written down.
Yeah, absolutely.
If the 4 I'm assuming they're unrelated projects, they're not connected in any way other than they're just in the same repository. If they were broken apart and tried, has that been taken?
That has not been tried. We can definitely note that down as something to try.
Because then we might be able to isolate it into something that's one thing that's problematic, or might be able to further tune accordingly, and then that would also relieve memory pressure or disk size pressure as a concern. That's what's coming to mind for me for next steps, but I'm going to stop talking in case others have more informed thoughts than I do.
I just linked to another issue that has been open for about, well, 8 months. Cool. That is also spot bugs and also assuming memory issue. So it doesn't look like we've been able to dig into this, but that looks definitely related. So it may be known. But I think the biggest thing right here with this ticket is we need to have some more verbose output to actually dig into this further.
Is there anything in specific I can have them add to increase the verbosity? We've got it set to debug currently, which I believe is the highest level for that level of logging.
I think, unfortunately, that is the best we currently have for increasing logging.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's the best I got right at that moment as far as the next step is concerned. It's like instead of trying to scan all 4 in one container, could we do one project per container and see if that resolves the issue? That would be curious. That would be interesting.
For sure, I'll note that. I'll also try upping the memory a bit more and see if that helps at all. And I'll continue to post updates in the thread for any additional help.
Okay. Well, thank you. Hopefully
Yeah,
it's
thank
useful.
you.
Yeah, we'll see hopefully this is useful. We're very interested in the outcome of this whenever you have information. All right. I apologize. I'm going to mispronounce this name. Is it Samir or?
It's Samaris, thank you.
Samaris. So you got a note in here about an RFP. I didn't know if this was
Yes.
connected to this investigation or if if this was a separate topic.
It's a separate topic. Sorry, maybe I added it in the wrong place in the.
No, dope. You're good.
Yeah, happy to give you some details.
Yep. Please do.
Yeah, so basically, this is a very big enterprise customer for us in Singapore. And they've just released an RFP for SaaS, mainly SaaS tool. The technical functional requirements is not a long list, but it has some good features requirements are mainly around IDE support and CLI support. Outside the GitLab. So I thought to ask the group here if we have that kind of capabilities in GitLab SaaS solution. Can they be used outside GitLab instance? This customer have GitLab deployment, but not necessarily, we're not sure yet if they will use this new SaaS tool within the same GitLab instance or just as an external scanning tool.
So to jump in here, we definitely do support these RFPs. So I'm happy to help and provide answers to these. I do encourage y'all to take a stab at answering them first using our documentation. Most of these are just copying and pasting links to and from. With that said, on your 2 points about IDE and CLI support, this is something that we see requests from. It's come up with analysts in the past. Ultimately, we have the thought that with our shift left approach of shifting security to developers, IDE support is potentially an argument a step too far, because you can't I can't force a developer to run a certain IDE and extension. I can't configure it for them. I can't enforce settings for them. I can't enforce workflows around that, which is why we put our focus and efforts building our functionality within the CI/CD process, where we have complete control to do things like our merge request approvers. We can structure that standard experience, that UI. With that said, at the end of the day, all of our security functionality are just CI jobs at the end of the day. So if one of our existing IDE plugins support interacting with CI jobs, naturally it will work with secure jobs. So the example that I've got particularly is our VS Code integration. You can do quick actions with checking the status of pipelines, quickly jumping to a merge request, jumping to specific job outputs. That all works with our security jobs today. In terms of syntax highlighting or a spell checker, you'll hear it called, where we'll highlight a vulnerability in your IDE. That's not something that we support today.
Thank you. And just one last thing, for the CLI, I think same applies, right? I mean, to have a CLI plugin that users can run on the shell directly.
The only thing I would say here is that at the end of the day, all of our analyzers are open source at the moment. So if a user wants to go download Bandit and run it themselves locally, they certainly can do that. That's not something that's in the scope of support for GitLab. We don't build our features with the intention of them being run locally. Again, all of that happens within our cloud CI/CD runners. With that said, if they're running GitLab locally or they can shell into their GitLab instance, certainly they could interact with runners in the CLI for that. But it's, again, not a core use case that we're focused on today.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Derek. Yep, that's all for me.
Okay, well, thank you. Anything else for tech support kind of questions before we move into general Q&A? Silence means no, so we'll go ahead and get on. I'll read for Christoph, unless was able to make the call. I do not see them in participants, so I'll go ahead and read. So just saw infrastructure as code demo from Greg last week, which reminded me of ex-colleague of mine published an open source project around this, and there's the link available to it. Might be worth looking into. I'm going to say thanks for sharing. So knowledge is good, options are good. These are it's worth it helps us know that these are out here and there are options available to us. I will say that we have not looked further into infrastructure as code, though that is becoming a recurring theme as for extending what SAST can do. So it's interesting that this keeps coming up, at least to me. I think I'm pretty sure there's an issue for this as far as expending IA infrastructure code type scanning, and this is something that's certainly worth adding to that. And I will pause there for other perspectives to come forward.
Yeah, this is a great example. Thanks for sharing. I'll definitely take a look at this. It looks like they've got a GitHub action set up. So this is an interesting opportunity where you've seen Greg Meyer's demo now of him pulling a whole lot of tools together. If you want to jump off and try to build a GitLab CI extension for this, I say go for it. It actually might be much simpler to get something functioning. I'm happy to have a conversation about that if you're interested to dig more into it. This is one where at the end of the day, our integration docs are open and public. You can go build your own GitLab integration with any analyzer using our Commons library. We have some examples that some folks on the call have built out. So always welcome that. I'm also happy if we've got connections to this company to have a conversation with them. So yeah, we're always interested in seeing what else other people are doing, especially if it's open source.
And with that, Sherry, you're next.
Thomas, last call, I was talking about I end up using the hidden CI analyzer variable to suppress some of the analyzers. So I dig up the example I had to do for a customer. So it's a TypeScript type of project. So a lot of our analyzers fail back then because we have this no match error. You can see no match because we say we have those languages initially when we detect it. When we actually go to analyze, we can't find a file with the suffix. So a lot of those analyzers threw this no match error. But with that issue closed, I assume I don't need to suppress those analyzers anymore. So this is just example back then what I had to do. And when I put those analyzers in at the end, then I ran the job, then it will skip the ones I excluded. So that's how I did it. The search screen might be too small, but that's how I put it into a CI variable.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for including that. I've zoomed in tightly and I'm trying, and I'm
I know. Let me try to zoom in a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can. Yeah, I can type the string. I just literally go to the template, copy all our analyzers and start deleting the ones that's offending in the UI. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So I just want to show a live example. My question is that I know we fixed this no match problem for both SAS and the dependency scan. But is our logic to detect what kind of language we have in TypeScript or monorepo type of projects? Is that logic still need to be worked on? Would we still falsely detect we have certain languages like a VB or JavaScript and try to run the analyzer, then just not produce results that we won't air it out? That's where I wasn't so sure.
I don't think that error will go away entirely for the foreseeable future, just because there is always going to be a discrepancy between how specific we can get using the rules CI syntax, and our analyzers have stricter requirements. So one of those cases is Brakeman. Brakeman is a Rails, not a Ruby analyzer. And as such, it needs to check if the gem file contains a specific reference to Rails. So we can't really check the contents of a file using the rule syntax. So there will always be a risk of that. Okay. I think the biggest, other than the SAST exclude analyzers, which will help out with this, the other big improvement I would mention here is improving the extendability of the rules themselves. So customers can set the rules to whatever they would be looking for, which I'll link.
Yeah, so not only this project failed, I have another customer's project failed miserably because it's a monorepo and they have like 30 sub-projects in it. It's all VB, C#, JavaScript, bunch of mishmash in it. Then I had to do the same thing just to go out, comment. I had to clone the whole repository, analyze what they really have, start just remove some of the analyzers.
So are those actually false positives, or does the search max depth make them work?
I think it's a false positive.
Okay.
Most of them, yeah.
So the rule syntax has a limitation where if it doesn't find a match after checking something like 10,000 files, then it just defaults to true. Is that sounds like the issue that we're hitting.
One of them, yeah, but not for this one. This one, I think it's a false positive. The monorepo one I was telling you, it's like a 40, 50 projects. We're migrating them. They sign up for gold, so we're migrating them. But still, I don't know how we can migrate those old projects. They have a lot of legacy projects, and how do we break their monorepo into individual projects? So the workaround for now, once they start implementing, they might stick to what I did, but we will see. I will check back with you folks that time. So that situation, it might reach the limit. So.
Just to stay it, I think our language has been pretty clear. I think the language we've been using is consistent, but this is a bit of a nuance to it with rule syntax. The limit, my memory matches Lucas's, and that is 10,000 comparisons. And notice that I didn't say 10,000 files. So within a given rule or job, the rule we're using to define a job, if we're looking for multiple things, like if we're looking for if a job description is looking for TypeScript and JavaScript and JSX files and so forth, then that effectively becomes 3 comparisons per file that we're looking for. And so that quickly eats into the maximum number of files that a repository can have before everything starts defaulting to true. So this is a nuance to be aware of, and is a limitation where we will match more aggressively than may be the case. Than we might be in other circumstances. However, when we do match and there's nothing that if there's no work that the analyzer can find to do, and it does pass with warnings like this, can you help me understand what harm is actually being caused other than this causing pipelines to run a little longer?
I think it's a perception. They just thought everything failed.
Okay,
because
so
there's so many analyzers failed, right? The screenshot you can see, they were like, oh, all SAS scan failed. They just have that impression. So when I go comment out, it didn't do any harm to them. It just visually, they know, oh, everything's working, everything's green. But we might accidentally escape some file types. Because
so it's a perception issue more than a technical correctness concern.
I don't think yeah, because when them go, I had tremendous difficulty with this account, to be honest, because the monorepo, they give me two. One's C Sharp, one's Java 7. I think I came back talk to you about them. That was a while back. Yeah. The example I gave it to you, it's a better one. This is not monorepo, it's just pure TypeScript. So, you know, and I just told them for this customer, I said, I just fixed it. It's just going to run against the language you use because I analyzed their repo. But for the other customer monorepo, I kind of, that time, I think in discussion, we knew we're not supporting it well, and also number files. Easily their repository source code files more than 1,000. The match is easily more than 10,000. That I understand. So that I commented out, they didn't complain either. Because it's just too noisy for them. So then the SAS worked for them because we surfaced some of the vulnerability to them, mostly lint. We cannot scan C# and what you call it, the older Microsoft platform, and also we cannot do Java 7. So end up they accept our SAS. To them, our SAS is partially working. But just saying everything red to them, nothing was working back then.
Okay, so we are creating doubt when we too aggressively, I guess would be the pithy way to stay back to it. Okay, thank you for the feedback. That's useful.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't stop the pipeline, that they understand, but it looks like entire SAS fail. Every one of the scanner almost failed. And on top of that, yes, lint SAS was so aggressive and gave them like thousands unknown vulnerabilities, and they just freak out, and it couldn't even load MR. It's just so big, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's compounded. It's multiple issues together made the experience not very favorable. But we correct everything else. But they have other challenges. They couldn't build. I got them to build in shell script. They couldn't get they couldn't get Java 7 build. I got them to build in Ant. Then they couldn't build the older Windows. I got them to build in shell script. What's a PowerShell? Sorry. So to them, that is a hurry victory. So, get the SAS, clean it up a little bit. They really liked it. They tried to replace Vertical. That was the case. And so we did win at the end. We're looking to start implementing in February. We're just ramping them up right now.
Thank you. I do want to hype one thing that Taylor has put in the agenda, in that there's a deprecation coming, and this will be part of removals for 14.0 for us. And this is a change in one of the configuration variables we have from SAST default analyzers to SAST excluded analyzers. We like this a lot because SAST default analyzers locks customers into a specific set of jobs that they can run until they remove or amend that particular setting. So if we are to deprecate, remove, or to add new analyzers, they're locked. They're locked into a particular set of jobs. This shift to excluded analyzers effectively is a way of, instead of declaring what you want on, it allows customers to declare what they want off. And that's an important shift because it'll allow us some flexibility moving forward.
For sure. Yeah,
so
for sure. Yes.
So this is a good one.
Yeah. Thanks,
I'm
Taylor.
looking forward. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this change.
Because my action is to exclude, not to include.
Yeah.
You can,
Yes.
but it's reverse. It's not intuitive. So.
Yeah. So this is a good change, and so we're looking forward to having this one in. So it's not in yet. We're working on it, but this is a good one. So, and this should help in this scenario. If it's indeed a perception problem, they just want to turn stuff off. All right, I am seeing we're at time, so I'm going to call it a conversation right there. So thank you everybody for your time and attention. Please enjoy Family and Friends Day tomorrow, and have a great long weekend. And we'll see you back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. See ya.
Okay.